In the year 1501, Ismail I successfully created the Safavid Empire and once again united all of Iran together. It was an empire that was kind of against other Islamic empires at that time, a Shiite empire, and it kind of gave a hint of the ancient Persian Empire. All this happening caused the Ottoman Empire to get angry and want to attack the east. But the Ottomans kind of underestimated the Persians. The Safavids loved their country, and that is why a war like Chaldiran took place. The footstep of 120,000 Ottoman soldiers was being heard. A lot of armies all around the world would shiver if they heard something like that. But it didn't even bother the 40,000 brave soldiers of the Safavid Empire. When Ismail I came into power, and when they realized how much power he could actually get, they got very afraid. The Ottomans had a lot of power back then and wanted to expand their empire into Europe. But the Persians to the east would worry them, and that's why they couldn't expand towards Europe. And they were worried about the Shias in the Ottoman Empire because they were being influenced by the Safavids. And this is why Sultan Selim, the emperor of the Ottoman Empire, decided to attack Iran. He was very low-key in creating his army, and when he was finished, he secretly started heading towards Iran. In the year 1514, Sultan Selim's army was heading towards Chaldiran. The Ottomans had about 120,000 men, but King Ismail I only had about 40,000 men, and the Persians knew a battle in an open field means an automatic loss. And that is why they left the door open to try to get the Ottomans somewhere better. The Ottomans get to Chaldiran, and the Persians and the Ottomans are facing each other. The Persians start the war. The right part of the Persian army destroys the left side of the Ottoman. This was a successful attack by the Persians. But that didn't really worry Selim because he had so much men that he could easily replace them. There are different sources to what happened at this war, and they're kind of different from one another. But in this video, we're gonna tell one of those stories. The story says Selim sends his Janissaries forward, which were his best men. It's good to know that the Janissaries had guns. When King Ismail sees the Janissaries, he decides to attack with his army into the guts of the Janissaries. Even though they had guns, they were forced to flee back. But Selim had more than enough men, and that's when he sent his horsemen forward. And it's good to note that the Persians defeat the horsemen as well. When the Persians defeat the Ottoman horsemen, Ismail decides to change formation, and he divides the army into two pieces so he can attack the left and right side of the Ottoman Empire. The Safavids easily defeat the right and left side of the army. After defeating the left and right side, Ismail I orders to attack the heart of the army. But Selim is watching all this happen from top of the hill, and he realized if he doesn't do anything, he's gonna get defeated. And that is when he activated the cannons, something that the Persians didn't have. Selim said, when the Persians get close, activate the cannon. The cannons would not stop, and they would drop the Persians like leaves on a tree. That is when Ismail decides to fall back. When Selim realizes that the Persians are falling back, he tells his ready horsemen to follow them. After the cannons were activated, everything turned around and the Ottomans started winning. The cannons really caused chaos and killed a lot of important Persian men. And by the force of the Persian commanders, they forced King Ismail to not stay. Even though Ismail fell back, Selim was scared to follow along because he would think it was a trap. A few days later, he enters Tabriz. At that time, Tabriz was the capital of Iran. On September 7th, 1514, the Ottoman army enters Tabriz. But the people of Tabriz were so pissed off that they attacked the Ottoman army, and they don't even let them stay for a few days. You could say the Battle of Chaldiran was one of the last battles that was between swords and knives, between cannons. Some historians compare this war to the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, an atomic war between guns and cannon, and in Chaldiran, a war with cannon against swords and bow and arrows. Selim reached two of his goals, and the places he conquered from the Persian Empire was taken back. After the Battle of Chaldiran, the Persians decided to make guns and cannons. And Abbas the Great was the one to do it, and he gets payback for what happened at Chaldiran. But that's a story in itself. Even though this was a loss for the Persians, but you could say this is the proudest defeat for the Safavid Empire.